FAIRtax is coming, don't stand in the way. FAIRtax is coming across the USA. FAIRtax is coming, clean up this mess. We got to get rid of the IRS. Hey, hey! Hey, hey!
Hello and welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the
FAIRtax Guys. And Ron, I must admit, the closer and closer it gets to April 15th, the sicker and sicker I am getting.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I will try to without too much difficulty.
Bob is really sick, and what a trooper this guy is. I mean, we want to get a new episode out for this, for Friday, so here we are.
All right, well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you want to get from point A to point B, and let's say that point A and point B is New York City and Los Angeles. The width of the country.
Yeah.
How would you rather get there? On the Wright Brothers airplane or a new 787?
Let's see. Let me think about this. Okay, I know. I think we'll go with the 787.
Okay, because that is a more modern aircraft, much more capable aircraft.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. If you want to pay your federal taxes, would you like them taxing your income or your consumption? It's about the same magnitude of question there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and that's what we talk about. There's another thing that I bring up. We, of course, the FAIRtax Guys have a Facebook page, which we invite you to join. Just look for the FAIRtax Guys on Facebook, and we always got something on there. I was looking at Facebook the other day, and I saw this quote from somebody. I sure am glad that I learned about parallelograms in school instead of taxes. It came in handy during parallelogram season.
And just exactly when would that be?
Yeah. And I think this is a little tongue-in-cheek humor here.
Well, I aced geometry. I know all about parallelograms.
Yeah.
But I know just enough about the tax code to know that it stinks and we need to get rid of it.
Yeah, and our goal in FAIRtax Power Radio is to help get rid of the income tax and replace it with the fair tax so people can go back to having fun with parallelograms and forget about doing their taxes.
Okay. Sounds like fun to me. So again, let's give you our email address real quick, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Of course, you mentioned our Facebook page, and be sure to tune in on Monday, April 17th.
Right.
The 15th is a Saturday this year, so they've moved the deadline, I think actually up to the 18th. We're going to be having another Facebook Live event on Monday the 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. God knows who's going to show up. Maybe the FAIRtax Czar guy will make another appearance. That'll be something.
Entirely possible,
But write that down on your things to do. Join us on our FAIRtax Facebook Live Monday, April 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time from the, what do we call our new studio over there?
The FAIRtax Research Library.
Oh, yes. That works very well.
Yeah. Okay. Legislative alert. Okay, we have been doing a legislative alert for the last several episodes, telling you about how many proposed legislative bills are in Congress that pertain only to the tax code. Only to the tax code. And on March 6th, there were 287. On March 20th, there were 332. On March 30th, there were 390. And as of April 3rd, there were 405. And as of this morning, before I came to the studio, there were 423. 423 bills submitted by members of Congress in the House and Senate to amend, and they all start with, to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986.
Yes, now this is a search you can do for yourself at congress.gov, and they've got a little search box where you can search for various pieces of legislation, and that's both proposed bills and resolutions and stuff like that. But in the search box, if you enclose in quotes the words Internal Revenue Code, this is where we're getting our information from, and we'd like you to keep up with it as well, because there are some doozies.
Yeah, and you can tell your friends about it because it speaks to the stability of the income tax code. There is no stability. It's changing. Now, not all of these will become law, but some of them will.
Oh, yeah, they
will.
And
we know from experience that there's almost one change to the tax code every day that Congress is in session. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that.
We've been highlighting our favorite things that the politicians are doing behind your back that you don't know about. And the one that catches my eye is the one right in the middle of the page there, Senate Bill 776. A bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to provide for the taxation and regulation of marijuana products and for other purposes. Now, I wonder what those other purposes might be.
Yeah, and there's no summary. I mean, there's several levels that this is scary. I mean, I don't care about marijuana one way or the other. The federal government thinks that they need to regulate it. Well, it's illegal in most places, so let the states do that. But how will they tax it and regulate it? How will they tax it? Does that mean that this bill would create a sales tax, a federal sales tax on marijuana?
That means I think they're going to go to all the corner drug dealers and ask them for their sales tax revenue and say, hey, we excuse me, we need a piece of your action here.
But, the thought that there's possibly a sales tax on marijuana, the last thing we want to do is give Congress a sales tax and an income tax. Because we know Congress, by experience, we know Congress cannot control themselves. That's why when the fair tax passes, the income tax has to go away, and the way it goes away is we repeal the 16th Amendment, which, was a bad idea 104 years ago anyways. So that bill is kind of scary on several levels. We do not want the federal government to have a sales tax on anything.
That's correct. Now, I tell you what, I say we're going to be getting into the national debate on tax reform. It's going to be starting hot and heavy. They say
very soon.
They're trying to go back to the health care thing. They want to go into the infrastructure stuff. And then the tax reform is kind of the third big thing that the Congress has got their eye on right now. And we need to ask you all, we the people of this country, some questions as to what you would like to have in a tax system. You have a choice. I mean, the politicians write the code, but you are the ones who elect the politicians. So you have some choice as to what kind of tax system you'd like to have. And let me ask you the first question. Would you rather spend about 8 hours, and that's just kind of on an average, reporting your income and all your expenditures and disclosing all of the intimate details of your financial position on a bunch of complicated forms? You got to calculate percentages. You make all kinds of additions, do a lot of math. Would you rather do that, or would you rather just pay your taxes as you buy things at the cash register? Think about that one.
Yeah. I mean, think about that, folks. 45 of the 50 states have a sales tax. You don't give it a second thought. You go to the store, you buy something, the sales tax is added onto the price of the product. That's it. You don't think about it. You're not worried about the sales tax collection agency knocking on your door, asking if you paid sales tax on that pair of jeans you bought last week. No, that doesn't happen. The sales tax is automatic. It's anonymous. It's simple. That's the idea behind the fair tax. But then, as the antithesis of that, think about the income tax, record keeping, all kinds of record keeping, not just financial, but like volunteers. I mean, I finally got my income tax done using TurboTax, and I wanted to put in. I do a lot of traveling for the fair tax. I mean, my wife and I head up to Orange Park, which is 90 miles one way, once a month. We go here, we go there, and so forth. So we have a lot of mileage. So I put all that stuff in there and multiply it by the rate. I can't remember what it was. And I put, expenses and all that stuff. I added all that stuff, medical expenses, and it still comes out that we're better off taking the standard deduction. But I don't know.
So you've got to do hours worth of work to figure out that you really didn't have to do those hours worth of work.
Exactly. Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I spent 1 or 2 hours figuring out that it was a waste of time. And just think of all the record keeping that you have to have and all the information you have to divulge to the federal imperial government.
So do you want to spend all that time and effort telling the government about your financial intimate details?
Yeah.
Or would you rather just pay it at the cash register anonymously and you would think? That's the choice between the income tax and this Better Way plan, which is still an income tax. It still requires the IRS.
Yeah.
They may say they're going to make it friendlier and easier, but it's still fundamentally the same monster that we've got right now.
That's right.
Or would you rather just get rid of all that stuff and, again, pay a sales tax at the cash register? Your choice.
And those that do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And what I mean by that was the tax code of 1986, when President Reagan had his tax plan approved by Congress, and it really flattened out the code. I think it reduced 7 brackets to 2 or 3. It reduced rates. It removed a lot of language. That was 86, all right? That was 31 years ago. And what do we have now? The tax code is almost 3 times larger than it started out in 86.
Yeah, that's the problem with the better way and the flat tax. It won't stay that way long at all. I mean, you've mentioned before, the ink won't even be dry on the legislation. And there'll be lobbyists knocking on Congress critters' doors wanting to buy special tax favors again.
My guess is they're working on it already, Bob.
Amen. Well, I got another question for you. Who would you rather deal with as a taxpayer? A big federal agency like the Internal Revenue Service that has a history of ignoring the Bill of Rights, has an incredible amount of power. They can swoop in and take your property, take your assets just by accusing you of something. You don't even have to have gone through any kind of litigation, through any kind of procedure. All they have to say is, we think you owe us money, and they can grab your house and your car and anything else. Or again, would you rather have a nice little agency from your state collect taxes at the cash register and send it in on your behalf?
Yeah, that's also an easy one. I mean, again, most people in the country are dealing with some kind of a sales tax in the state in which they live. And it's very simple. You don't even think about it. But then you hear these horror stories about the IRS. Like Bob says, they ignore the Bill of Rights. When they do something like civil asset forfeiture, and they come in and they accuse somebody of something or other, they're guilty. There's no due process. There's no presumption of innocence. I mean, the IRS is such an onerous organization, and they treat us like subjects instead of citizens.
Yeah,
so
they'll make your life hell for months, if not years.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times they just say, oh, okay, no problem. You don't owe anything. See ya.
Yeah. After you spent all that time and effort and money, trying to clear your name when they improperly accused you of something. And like Bob said, their accusation is like a conviction. All right? All they have to do is accuse you of something, and they start doing all this nasty stuff. So, it's crazy. So again, the IRS, or do you just want to pay a sales tax at the cash register?
Okay. And these are questions that you have some degree of control over and how they get answered.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
So
I'll let you ask the next question of everybody out there.
Alrighty. Okay. I'm surprised he's held up this far.
Oh, I'm getting there.
Okay. Continue to put up with an estimated 19% evasion of income tax with the current system, or see tax evasion almost totally eliminated via a retail sales tax. Yeah, that's
a big one. Realize that every time somebody else evades their income tax, you've got to make up the difference.
That's right. The rest of us who pay our taxes have to make it up. And it is almost a 20% evasion rate. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. America, there's about almost 20% of the taxes due the IRS and the U.S. Treasury are being evaded by people who underreport their income or don't report it at all, or over-report their deductible expenses. The income tax is so complicated, and it's so convoluted, and you have 140 million tax filers between individuals and companies, that even an organization of 100,000 people, I think the IRS is about 100,000 people, that they can't keep up with it. And people who are good at evading the income tax know that the chances of being caught are almost nothing. Then, on top of that, think about this. Who pays for the investigation? All right, the IRS has to investigate. If they see something that their computers, pull up a red flag in a particular tax return, and they have to go look at it, all right, they have to investigate it. And if they think something's really gone wrong here, and they go after the person and look for more information, and then they accuse them, and let's say it goes to trial and all that stuff, who pays for that? We do. So on top of that, not only is the income tax easy to evade, and that evasion cost us, by the evasion, the investigation, the prosecution, and if these people have to do jail time, it's federal jail. We have to pay for that too. So in in many levels, the income tax cost us dearly, and the evasion of the income tax costs us dearly. Now, compare that to a sales tax. Do you see any stories about the sales tax being evaded? I mean, you just never hear about that because it's almost impossible to evade the sales tax. Very, very difficult. You can't walk into Walmart and buy, a big ticket item. You're going to buy a new TV and tell the clerk that, I'd like not to have to pay the sales tax on this. What do you think would happen? They'd say goodbye.
They would take the TV back to the electronics department.
Yeah. And you'd be out of there. So, a sales tax is anonymous, and it's very difficult to evade. Very, very difficult. There's 90% of the sales in this country are done by about 500 companies, the big box stores, Walmart's, Sears, Target. Up in the Midwest, there's Myers and so forth. These very large chains that are across the country or in large parts of the country. They're not going to put up with that. They're going to do things on the up and up because they've got a big organization to maintain. So they're not going to tolerate any evasion. So how is it going to happen? Now, evasion of the sales tax is very, very small. Evasion of the income tax is a serious, serious problem.
Yeah, because we've got people who don't file returns at all. They work for cash under the table.
Yeah.
They're in the country illegally.
Yeah.
They're dealing drugs on the street corner or doing other kind of criminal enterprises. And all these folks, their income is not taxed because it's not reported.
Yeah,
and
it's
there's
invisible.
there's no mechanism for checking up on that thing. But those same people, the non-filers, even like if you're driving for Uber or have an eBay store, things like that, if you're here illegally, if you're providing some kind of criminal activity and getting your income that way, all of those people still buy things.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
still buy things. And if we need to extend the tax base to those folks, because a lot of them are making a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
But we need to be collecting taxes from those folks as well. The sales tax will do it when they buy things. The income tax, no chance. Your choice. Do you want them to pay their fair share or don't you?
By the way, these items that we're talking about were sent in an email over a year ago to me by a fellow by the name of Daniel Dyer. And folks, I have to admit, I'm not sure who this guy is, but this is a great format. And Bob and I are using this as our theme for today's program. Okay, what else here? We got...
I like number 5. Would you like to get your full gross amount of your paycheck or not? There's an easy one that should cut across all political ideologies, all party affiliations. I don't know anybody of any ideology, any affiliation that would not like to have a bigger paycheck.
Imagine somebody, for the first time, the fair tax goes into effect, the next payroll comes along, you get your paycheck, and you got this huge raise. What is going on here? You haven't been paying attention. Well, there's no federal withholding. There's no FICA, and there's no income withholding tax. And so that means, now, if they might take out for insurance, if you got some insurance through your employer or something like that, or if there's a state income tax, but no
voluntary
federal withholding.
deductions would still stay.
So you get your entire income, paycheck under the fair tax. With the income tax, they continue to take that out. And if you're self-employed, if you work for somebody and they take out FICA, that's 7.65%. If you're self-employed, you pay the whole thing, 2 times 7.65% plus the income tax withholding. So when the fair tax goes into effect and the income tax goes away, you get the raise by those percentages. That could be a nice raise. Mm-hmm. Now, what would that do? Suddenly, you've got more money in your pocket to provide for your family. Not only that, this might be one of the other items, you're getting the prebate.
That's it. I was going to ask you, which would you rather have? A tax refund once a year maybe, or one for sure every month?
Yeah.
Your choice.
Yep. And if you're getting a refund, if you're getting right now you can hear on the radio and the TV all kinds of places where people want you to spend your tax refund. Your tax refund, that was an interest-free loan that you gave to the government. You let the government maybe more for the entire year, and you got no interest on it. All right? And And Bob, the thing is, I've talked to a friend of mine, and she can't wait to get her refund. I said, you did pay you did let the government keep that money for a year without interest. She said, yeah, but if I had it, I would have spent it. Well, yeah, you would have spent it.
Yeah,
but
it's your money. Why not?
And if you have a little bit of tenacity or whatever, you could put it away. You could put that extra money away. But people are so enthusiastic about getting their tax return when, and we call that intoxication, all right? That nice feeling you get when you get your tax return until you realize, hey, that was my money all along,
I'd like to get my refund once a month.
Yeah, once a month, prebate under the FAIRtax. That's the way to do it. So, and we've talked about the prebate expansively before, so we're not going to do it again.
All right, question for you. Would you like to keep the highest corporate income tax rate on the planet right here in the United States? Or would you like to cut it to zero, make America the best place, again, on the planet to start a business or to hire people? Your choice.
Imagine, suddenly, after the FAIRtax becomes law, the corporate tax rate drops to zero. And companies in other parts of the world say, holy cow, look at the United States. They have no corporate income tax.
Well, wait a minute. Don't you think those guys ought to pay taxes on their billions of dollars in profits? That's not fair.
Yeah, you will get that. Oh, well, the corporations need to pay their fair share. You know that the corporations do not pay taxes. They collect taxes, and they pass on that expense to us, the consumer. All right?
Of all of the light bulbs that we can turn on in people's heads, I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
When people realize that corporate taxes are just another cost of doing business, they roll downhill to their customers, to their shareholders, to their employees. Individuals pay those corporate taxes.
Every time.
And sometimes, I just love it when I see somebody's light go off and say, hey, wait a minute, that's right.
Yeah.
If this company didn't have to pay this huge income tax or had these huge compliance costs, lawyers and tax accountants and all the time they got to spend complying with the tax code, they could sell me their products for less.
And think about, right now we're worried about corporate inversion because the tax code is, one, not only is the corporate tax very high, but the costs of complying with the tax laws is very high too. It's chasing companies away. We've got companies that are leaving the U.S. and going offshore. One of my sons works for an engineering company that's based in Ireland because Ireland has a much lower corporate tax rate than here in the United States. Chrysler Daimler, all right, became Daimler Chrysler based in Germany. Because I read somewhere that there was a 14 percentage point advantage to basing the company over there than to basing it here. Okay? So we are chasing companies away. You drop that corporate tax rate to zero and you bring those compliance costs down. Companies are going to be tripping over themselves trying to get to this country. We will be the tax haven of the world. And all those companies coming here to create their products and services, they got to have people. They got to hire people. We'll have a hiring frenzy, and we're soon. And what'll happen is you'll soon run out of employees. You really will.
Yeah, you've got to hire the people to actually work in the factories and create the products. But look at all the ancillary employment you're going to get. How many more UPS drivers are we going to do? How many more truck drivers are we going to need to deliver all this stuff?
Yep. The economy is just going to blossom with the FAIRtax, and it'll be done automatically. You don't need any other legislation. You need only the FAIRtax legislation and only to get rid of the income tax and the IRS. That's all you have to do. All this other stuff comes along, all right? And you know it will because it's common sense. You drop the corporate tax rate down to zero. You drop the compliance costs. Corporations are going to flood into this country. All that money that's overseas, that corporations are holding overseas because they'll get hammered with it if it comes back.
All right. So, we've got through most of Dyer's questions here, but there's one more I want to get into. It says, would you rather have nonprofit organizations and churches having to restrict their political speech to preserve tax-exempt status, or would you rather let those folks exercise their rights to free speech and advocacy? I guess that depends on which side of the political spectrum you're on. If they're saying stuff you don't like, you might want to shut them up. But then that works until somebody shuts you up because they don't like what you're saying.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to happen. Everyone needs to have free speech.
And this has been going on. This is 2017. We've been hearing about this since 2010. The IRS targeting conservative groups and so forth, wanting to know all kinds of information about them. I mean, they were dragging out their applications for tax-exempt status, all right? And sending back questions. Well, they wanted to know who was a member of the organization, what their affiliations were. They actually wanted to know what books they read. Yeah, all that stuff, all right? The IRS was out of control and, targeting these groups, whether it be a nonprofit, whether it be a church organization or, an educational. I mean, Bob and I are members of the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. It is an educational organization. We are here, all the volunteers, and they're all volunteers. There's nobody paid. Their main purpose is to educate the public about the fair tax so we can get this going. That's what we do. Fortunately, we got our 501c3 status before all this other nonsense started. I have a feeling we might have been sucked up in that too.
Just as a matter of principle, though, the government should not be able to use the tax code to detect or to dictate what people can and can't say.
And it works both ways. And Bob, you've mentioned it before. It works both ways. Whether you have, a Democratic administration or a Republican administration, the IRS can be weaponized, and it has been done. It has been done by
both sides have done it.
So everybody's guilty of this. Take that tool away from them. Take that temptation away from them. Remove the IRS. We don't need it with the fair tax.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I made it.
You did.
We're almost to the... Oh, wait a second. There we go. Oh, wouldn't you know it? We did make it. But we do want to remind everybody once again of our FAIRtax Facebook Live on Monday, April 17th. And our intrepid buddy Randy will be on hand as well to help interact with people online on that thing. And if you've got questions, comments, I really want to hear people's horror stories.
Yeah.
Because the tax filing deadline will be right there. I want to hear people's horror stories about what they had to do to get their taxes done.
That's 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday, April 17th. Facebook Live. If you're on Facebook, please join us. It is interactive. When you type in a question or comment, we will respond immediately, and we do our very level-headed best. And like Bob says, Randy's in the other room, also on Facebook. So if Bob and I can't answer something, Randy can, because he's extremely knowledgeable about the fair tax and taxes in general. It's a great venue. Bob and I really enjoy this. I just hope you're better by then.
Oh well, I don't think I can be much worse, but we'll get through there.
So Facebook Live. Again, our email, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Please send us any questions, comments, whatever you have. And our Facebook page. And how else can they?
One more thing.
Webinar?
The webinar, yes.
The webinar. If you go to fairtax.org/webinar, you can sign up for that. You have to register in advance, and then the system will send you an email with a link. And that's also at 8 p.m. the fourth Thursday of the month, and you just click it, and that's also interactive. You can type in questions and get answers. So lots of ways to learn about the fair tax.
We need to direct people to bigsolution.org.
That's right. Solutions,
singular, not solutions. Bigsolution.org.
And that's where you can help out. We need your help. We can't do this. And we got thousands of volunteers across the country, but that alone is not going to do it. We need the people getting behind us and demanding this. And bigsolution.org is one way you can do it. So please help us in our quest to simplify your taxes.
Amen. That'll do it. Well, I tell you what, that's just about going to wrap it up, because that's just about all I got left in me for this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio.
I really don't want to stay here anymore and catch this.
Thank you so much for listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming, don't stand in the way. Fair tax is coming across the USA.